Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. Joining me today is national best-selling author Nick Petrie to talk about his new Peter Ash thriller, The Dark Time. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Tracy. I really appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure. This is a wonderful book. Beautiful cover, by the way. I really love the colors that they did with this, with the purple and kind of pinkish colors mixed in together. It's really, really pretty, very striking. So I think that's going to be a big eye catcher for readers for sure. Did you really like it when you saw the
I
cover, or?
I did. It's a little different from what we've been doing. We've been
Hmm.
doing these sort of landscape scenes because Peter's an outdoor guy, and these books often there's a big outdoor component to these books. But and that's a piece of this book as well. But there's also something sort of a little. There's something very urban and kind of anti-urban about this book as well. So that it was
Yeah.
the team sent me that cover, and I'm like, yes, that is the one.
Oh, that's great whenever you look at it for the first time and you're like, yes,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
like, oh, cringeworthy, right? No, that's great. Well, I have to say, and this might be a little weird to say, but reading your books it always feels a little bit like coming home. And as I mentioned before I hit record, I grew up in Illinois my whole life. We just moved to North Carolina recently, but you, as a Midwesterner, you use terms that I have used my whole life. And I just love that because it just, like I said, it feels very comforting. And uh, I always get made fun of. Even my husband makes fun of me that I use the term blinker instead of turn signal. Things like that. It was fun to read.
I didn't even know that was a regional term. I just, that's
Maybe
that's
maybe
that's
it's
funny.
my husband likes to make fun of me. I don't know, but it's always been blinker to me.
Well, it's funny that there is sort of a Midwestern sort of class of mysteries and thrillers that there's something about that Midwestern vibe, whether it's a Chicago writer or somebody like William Kent Kruger who's based in St. Paul and writes about northern Minnesota. There is something. I'm not sure I can quite put my finger on it, but I don't know. Readers seem to like it, so I'm all
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, it's I have a hard time putting my finger on it too, but there's a laid backness, that's probably not even a word, but a relaxed feel to your writing. And you have a lot of all the elements that thriller lovers love, but also you have this way of putting together a sentence or a phrase that is just, I mean, I don't know if this sounds corny, but it's just really beautiful. It's very lyrical sometimes, and sometimes just the way that you describe people, it's just like, oh my gosh, that's such a good sentence. I wish I would think about that, you know?
Well, thank you very much. That from another writer, that means a lot to me. I put a lot of thought into the sentence level stuff. And I think in part that's why these books are fast, is because I don't want there to be any jagged edges sticking out. And it's also, I think, why people are so fond of these characters, because I lean into sort of who they are on the page in a way that I think not all writers do.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Well, before we get into the dark time, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just whatever you'd like to share?
Well, I am a Wisconsin guy. I live in southeastern Wisconsin now. I've lived in Omaha, Nebraska as a kid. I spent 10 years in Seattle, which is where this book is set. So, I come by that knowledge, honestly. It's funny. I started out. I mean, I have an undergraduate degree in creative writing and American culture, so a double major, and I also have a master's in fine arts. But I was a carpenter and a cabinet maker and a remodeling contractor for 15 years, all while writing. And then I started a home inspection business. We moved back to Wisconsin, and it was sort of a race to see which business would actually support my family first. So I became a home inspector, and that's kind of where this series came from, was meeting veterans coming home from their war and being somebody that they could talk to about those experiences because I was never, I'm not part of their family, right? People don't want to, you don't want to load your family down with the stuff you've been through, who you think won't really understand.
Yeah.
And your service friends, those relationships are all about being tough and dependable and not about being vulnerable. And
Mhm.
then you're spending 3 or 4 hours with, some schmo who's going to tell you kind of how your house works and maybe your furnace needs to be replaced. And, I'm down in the basement and, I notice somebody's wearing an army shirt or we're just talking about stuff. And I say, so you were in the army, and these stories would start to come out. And that's kind of how I came to this character who's a Marine Corps veteran coming home from war and trying to sort of figure out what comes next because I met a whole bunch of people in that exact state.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And for those who haven't read the series yet, hearing you talk about your other profession, your carpentry profession, and things like that, you infuse a lot of that into the story with Peter as well, because he's a very handy guy, right? Even just the way that I noticed it was one of the scenes where he was basically breaking into this kind of like office building, and just the way that you describe the locking mechanism and the door jam and things like that. Like you totally, and I have no idea what those things are, but a carpenter would, kind of thing.
I'm
So
I'm always afraid that's too much. Like I'm always sort of like, do I
no.
take this out? Do I leave this in? So all right, again,
It's good
it's
flavor. It's good flavor. Yeah, it's nice. It's just like with the some of the military thrillers, where they add some folks like to go into a lot of detail, and some folks just like to add a little flavor. I think that's what you're doing with what you did with Seattle, your knowledge of Seattle, your knowledge of carpentry. It just adds flavor to the experience. It's good. It's really
oh,
good.
thank you.
All right. Well, what can you tell us about the dark time? And I think is this book 9? Did I count that
Yes,
right?
book
Okay.
9, which is insane to think that I would have written and published 9 actual books
Yeah.
at this point. So the dark time starts as we meet this influential tech journalist named Caitlin Thorson, known as KT to her friends and enemies. And she's just received a threatening letter at her home that tells her that if she doesn't back away from a story, that both she and her 13-year-old daughter will be killed. The problem, of course, is that she doesn't even know what that story that she's supposed to back away from is. So she quickly calls her old friend June Cassidy, who happens to be the sweet patootie of our hero Peter Ash, and he appears in Seattle to help protect KT and her daughter. But things, as often happens in thrillers, go sideways very quickly, um, and it becomes clear soon that there's a lot more at stake than we initially had thought.
Yeah, no, it's I there are things in this story that are there are elements, I guess you could say, that are disturbing. Sometimes disturbing in a good way, a thought-provoking way. Well, except for maybe the punishment wall. That was disturbing in an entirely different way. But I think like the you have a character in here called the Messenger, and I won't say much about that character because I don't want to spoil anything, but that person has got to be local law enforcement's worst nightmare. And I wondered how much you thought about that. And also I would really like to know, are you a tech guru, or do you just have one in your back pocket? Because it seems like there was a lot of research that you had to do in certain areas of this book.
Well, the messenger is, yeah, this is a book that it would be easy to spoil a lot of things. So I'm going to sort of
Mm.
be careful as I talk around these things. But the messenger is a deliberately low tech, lo-fi person who is connecting with his people in these very, sort of sub rosa ways. There's a comparison to how Osama bin Laden managed to evade the detection by the world's largest and best equipped military for 10 years. So it's a lot of that sort of very simple stuff. And so he is able to really stay below the radar of everybody, which is part of what makes him so dangerous. But I am super interested in tech, but I am not a particularly technology capable person. Just like getting my computer to do what I wanted it to do for this podcast was challenging enough. Um, but I mean, I think we live in this world, and that's really a lot of where this book came from is our world is changing very quickly, and in between sort of our sort of crazy messed up national politics and these ongoing wars overseas and really the very rapid changes being brought on by technology, specifically AI. I mean, I think a lot of people are in a high state of anxiety. And I was
Mhm.
just interested in sort of exploring that and to see, um, sort of, what might come of that. What sort of person would feel the same way and would have, uh, what kind of thing would they want to do about it? And that's where the messenger comes in.
Yeah, yeah. At one point, Peter's girlfriend, June, who is, I think she's considered an investigative journalist. Do I have that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
She reflected on how much she had changed through her adventures with Peter through these, eight. I think she came in on the second book, if I
Right.
recall correctly. Uh, I think it was the moment when she spotted a man like lurking outside a house that she was in. She mentioned that she had like a powerful desire to take ownership of her life and safety in a whole new way. I think that's what she was learning from Peter. And that really resonated with me. And I was kind of curious if that was something that you kind of foresaw at the beginning when you introduced June, or if that's just kind of how it worked out, or how, what can you tell us
Well,
about June?
well, that's a really interesting question. And I don't think I've ever been asked it, so I appreciate that. The, June, if June was going to be Peter's partner, right? Peter's a lot, and he has his own set of issues. So she had to be a very strong, capable person, and sort of willing to sort of smack him down if he gets out of line. Um, and I think all successful relationships, there's this sort of balance, right, of energy and influence. Um, but Peter sort of showed up with these skills. He's a Marine Corps vet. He served multiple deployments overseas during the Iraq and Afghanistan war. Um, eh, so he comes built in with some of the skills required to sort of deal with the events in these books. But June really did not. And if I was going to have her continue to be a part of these books and not just sort of run screaming away from sort of the dangers that Peter puts himself in and that she also ends up in because she's his partner, she had to undergo a sort of an internal transformation to not to be more like Peter, but to um, to sort of not be freaked out or scared,
Hmm.
and to sort of welcome the challenge in her own way. Because one of the pieces of feedback I get from readers is they're giant fans of June Cassidy, and um, I have been told on many occasions like. I can't. I'm not allowed to kill her. She and Peter can't break up. Like its readers have a very invested a stake in her. So it's been a lot of fun to have her evolve over the course of the books.
Yeah, I've always loved her too. And this book, you made me chuckle out loud because I come from a romantic suspense background, and there was one point where they were getting ready to take off, and the way you wrote it was something on the order of she grabbed him by his ears and planted a hard one on him or something like that, gave him a kiss basically, and it was just, I mean, the visual on it was so funny because Peter's such like a big macho guy, and it was a fun moment. So but the interesting thing that I found that you got me thinking about whenever June was reflecting on how she had changed, then whenever, and again, I'll be careful with spoilers, but when we get later in the book, Peter talks about the the messenger and his influence on people. And he said something on the order of that it feels like people wanting, I think it was something like people wanting to take their hands off the wheel and allow someone else to steer their life.
Right.
And I just thought that that was very interesting. It was here you have June, who is trying to take control of her life in a very different way. And I think in that scene, she, had a gun and she was going out to face this guy who is lurking outside. And then you have, the people who are just like, I'm done. And I guess I'm curious, do you think that that's a case of people who still have hope versus those who have just given up, or am I completely reading too much into it?
Well, that's an interesting take, and I don't know that I had thought that much about it per se. One of the funny things about writing these books for me is that it's talking with other people who are reading them, where I start to get some insight into actually what was in my mind at the time.
Mm,
Um, I, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting contrast. I just think I mean, I think life is hard, right?
hmm.
And the world is changing fast. And, um, like a lot of people, I mean, I would love to have somebody just tell me what to do and make sure everything was okay. And, we all have that, not to get too woo-woo, right? We all have that child inside of us who just wants to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very human desire. And you can be a very, sort of ambitious, forthright, out in the world person and still, sort of have a relationship with your sweetheart who, kind of helps caretake those other parts of you. And that, it always goes both ways. Peter and June are very much have that kind of relationship where they are looking out for each other.
Yeah.
But I think that is really just the human condition that life is hard and we are all looking, whether it's, if we were cavemen, right, we're inventing gods to, help us understand why lightning and thunder exist and why the seasons change, and to help us feel secure that spring will come again when we're in the depths of winter. I mean, this is something that is sort of built into us as humans.
Yeah. Yeah. You have another character in this book. Her name is Ellie. She's our 13-year-old daughter of the journalist. And in my mind, I call her a smart mouth 13-year-old. That might be being a little too harsh, but
I think
she,
that's about right.
is that okay? All right.
Yeah, yeah, that's about right.
I absolutely loved her nickname for Peter. And I just, it was such, she's such a fun character. And is she inspired by anybody in your life, or
Well,
is
so
she
I
just,
have a son who's now 25, but watching him with his friends at that age, like I love, teenagers at that age because,
uh,
they're feeling their oats and they're unfiltered in a certain way. Their emotions are, rising and raging through them. So that was sort of part of us like channeling those earlier days. And I also have a writer friend with two daughters, and I hear his tales of, being the father of two daughters as well. And so I was channeling that a little bit too. But I did have I had a couple of people read this to sort of make sure I was on track. So I was glad to get some feedback, sort of telling me that that I had done an okay job as a middle-aged guy writing about a teenage girl.
yeah, no, she was definitely a fun character to add in there. Well, on this show, we like to talk about a story's stakes, and I always like to joke at, love, death, the fate of the realm. Those are all very high stakes, and we love them. But what I'm curious about and would like to hear more about is what is personally at stake for Peter in this book? What happens if he doesn't succeed?
Oh, there's so much at stake in this book. There's, the life of this 13-year-old girl for one thing, and it's also Peter's own sense of himself. Somebody dies in this book, and Peter really feels like it's his fault, and so he can't fail again. And of course, the larger stakes of the larger plot, right? What the messenger wants to bring about, those are really almost the largest stakes of all. I guess I could have an asteroid come and hit the planet. That might be bigger stakes. But some of my books are much smaller. It's really one person's soul almost that's at
Mm,
risk. And this book, the stakes really could not be bigger, and it was a bunch of fun to write in that way. Um, and if Peter really, can't pull this off, kind of all bets are off for everybody.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Is it important for you to end your stories on a hopeful note, or do you not think about that at all when you're writing? You just whatever the ending is, that's what the ending is.
I think it's really easy to be nihilistic about the world, and I think these books have enough dark components to them that I want to sort of bring it back around. And this book in particular, I think it was really important to, again, sort of going back to human nature, right? We are all of us are kind of up against a lot of stuff right now. But in the end, like, we have each other and we can work together and we can solve some of these big problems we're confronted with. And I guess that's kind of where I wanted to leave the reader with this sense of, kind of common humanity. Yeah, I don't know. It's a funny thing. I don't really like it when writers like tie everything up with a big red bow at the end. I want there to be consequences to kind of what's happened.
Hmm.
I want there to be sort of some lingering after effects, even from book to book of what's happened previously. But I, I mean, for me, I am always trying to find the hope in whatever's going on in the world. I'm always trying to find sort of how do I find a way to carry on? There's that great uh, quote from Waiting for Godot. Uh, of course, now I've lost it in my head. Um, I can't go on. I can't go on. I go on. Right?
Mm,
It's like this idea that, like, yeah, life is hard and requires work, and we can do this if we work together. And that's kind of it's about community. It's about friendships. It's about relationships. I mean, these are sort of tough guy books. They're fun. They're fast. There's a lot of stuff that happens, but I mean, at the end, it's all about the heart.
hmm. Absolutely. Well, I will leave a little teaser here that as a reader, I really appreciated the gas station scene. Thank you very much.
I'm glad that was important to me, and it just sort of showed up. I didn't sort of plan how I was going to do that, but I knew he needed something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it was
so
great.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
All right, changing gears just a little bit. What is one thing that readers might be surprised to learn about you?
One thing that readers might be surprised to learn about me. I don't know. Like, I think a lot. I have a big community of writers that I talk to. Just an hour-long phone call every couple of months with a fair number of people. And what we talk about, kind of like how to make this work, like how this weird writing life of ours. And I think, writing is hard. Writing, it's hard. I mean, I've been writing a book a year. I missed a couple of years in there. But it's to work at that level is not easy, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think a lot about, creativity. I read about neuropsychology and, kind of how the brain works and how creativity works. And like in the body, that's one of my weird interests, I have to say. But it's all kind of, self-protection because I'm just trying to figure out how it works for me too.
Yeah, yeah, you bet. All right. Well, before we go, can you share what's coming up next? I take it you're probably working on Peter's next adventure, but maybe you've got other things going on that you'd like to share.
Well, no, Peter's Next Adventure is already done. We're still trying to figure out the title, but it's been through a round of edits. I'm waiting for copy edits. We're waiting to decide on title and cover and all those things. But it begins along the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee, where Peter comes across an old man who's basically been mugged on the trail, and has to sort of, of course, because this is a Peter Ash novel, there's more going on than initially appears. Um, but there's this older couple with their own separate strange, mysterious pasts. It was a lot of fun to write, and it set
Yeah.
uh, both along the sort of in the semi-wilderness of the Appalachian Trail of northern Tennessee and southern Virginia, and also in the DC area, which was a bunch of fun to write about.
Well, I will share with you as a fellow Midwesterner, someone who used to say Appalachian. I have learned that here it's Appalachian.
It's Appalachian. Okay.
Appalachian. All right.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Yeah. All right, folks, be sure to order your copy of The Dark Time today. It's a wild ride, lots of action, but also a lot of heart. You can learn more about Nick by visiting his website at nickpetrie.com, where you'll find all of his social media links. While you're there, be sure to sign up for his newsletter. Nick, thank you so much for joining me. It was just a real pleasure chatting with you. Really appreciate you being here.
No, thank you, Tracy. This is so great. You asked such great, interesting, and insightful questions. So I really appreciate it. And it's just, as always, great to talk to another author about the weird life that we are living.
It absolutely is. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlyn.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.